Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event, Education Under Duress. I'm just gonna wait 1 minute. I'm a minute early here, and so I just don't want to jump ahead. I want people to be able to hop on and be part of the full discussion, the full talk. So I hope you all had a great start to your week. Mondays are Mondays, even in the summer, I guess. So very full day at our house. We're busy all day long. So I do see that some people are jumping on. I can't actually see who's joining by name. So if you're hopping on, put a comment in the message box and say hello. Tell me where you're from, and or if I know you personally, say hi, because I want to see you. So I'm gonna start off this talk. So excuse me, the talk is called Education Under Duress. And I picked that title because that's really where we are right now in the history of our schools. We just, with COVID and the pandemic and people really not knowing which way to turn and which way to go. We are constantly scrolling, looking for answers, looking for what's coming down the pike next, and we just really don't know. And we haven't really, our generation hasn't really been in this situation before. Past generations have, but our generation hasn't. And so it's a topic that we need to discuss. The first thing I want to say about this topic tonight, some of you know me, I homeschool my children. This conversation is not about homeschooling. So this conversation is not about homeschooling. So if there's somebody that you know who is like, well, I don't really want to homeschool, that's not what this is about. That's not what this talk is about. This is about having hope going into the next school year. And so if you know somebody who is like, well, I kind of wanted to come and listen, but I don't want to homeschool, that's not what this is a talk about. So text them, message them, tell them, get on here, you need to hear this. If you want hope for your year, this is where you need to be. So I'm just going to introduce myself. So if there are people on here that don't know who I am, my name is Carrie Ann. I have been, for the last 8 years, a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling mom. However, I just went through a massive transition for our family and started a career in real estate. And so I'm now not just a stay-at-home mom, I am a working, staying-at-home mom. And so being able to, I'm in the journey of trying to figure out how to balance all of that, and making sure that my work-life balance is in order, and that we can grow together as a family, even though I'm not home as much as I used to be. So that's a little bit about me, and so we're gonna start this talk with, I just want to tell you a little bit of a story about this pivotal time in my life where I made a very, very important decision. I was at a friend's house when my daughter, my oldest daughter, who is now 12, was about 4 years old. And all of a sudden, the conversation turned to, are you going to homeschool or send your daughter to public school? And at that time, I was actually working in a public school. I was directing theater. I was a technical director and choreographer for the New York Mills high school. And so if any of you guys are on, hi. And so I was doing that, and so I just automatically thought, well, that I would probably just send her to school since I was going to be there anyways. And then the conversation turned to this. Why, if you send your daughter to school, aren't you afraid that she'll be influenced by the other students, that she'll get a bad attitude, that aren't you afraid, she's going to lose some of the things that you've taught her? Aren't you afraid? And then the conversation turned to the other side, people on the other side of the fence who are like, well, if you homeschool, aren't you afraid that they're not going to be social enough? Aren't you afraid that you don't know enough to teach them? Aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid? So I was in this conversation, and I was just going, all I am hearing out of this conversation is fear. That's all I'm hearing. Aren't you afraid on both sides of the fence? Aren't you afraid? And so I was just like wrestling with that. And I just walked away from that conversation, and I said to myself, I don't know what my decision is going to be, but I do know that I'm not going to make this decision in fear. So that is really where I started. I am getting a couple of messages. I'm just going to make sure. Can everybody hear me? If you can somebody make a comment in the box? Because I'm seeing that some people are messaging me, but I can't go out and check my messages at this time. So if you can hear me, say hey. Awesome. Thank you so much, Autumn. That was really, really helpful. So I'm getting messages in my text messaging, or not my text, my PM, and I'm like, and they're from people that I know, so I'm like, I don't want to jump off and look at those. So anyways, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So I made this decision. I decided that I wasn't going to make this decision out of fear. I drew the line, and I was like, no way. And I didn't actually make the decision to homeschool for many, many more months. And that's a whole different story. And like I said at the beginning, this is not about homeschooling. This is about putting hope back into your child's education for this next school year. So one thing that I have learned in my lifetime, my 38 years around the earth, that whenever somebody, especially my children, are in a moment of duress, they are not teachable. Have you ever had a moment in your life where, fear gripped you and you didn't think clearly? You're engulfed in worry and in concern and anxiety, and you could not think clearly. I'm going to ask a question. In those times, were you teachable? Could somebody walk up to you and say, I'm going to teach you a new concept, and expect you to grasp it at that very moment? Chances are most people would say no, unless they're a superhero or something. I don't know. But or even think about a moment where, if you ever have lost a loved one, and you're at the funeral, or it's, you run into somebody right after the incident, and they're like, just let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And you don't even know what you can do for you in that moment. You're in so much pain and sorrow and distress and duress that, like, how are you able to communicate to somebody what you need? You don't even know what you need. And so just taking that in mindset into what we've been going through, everything our children know has been changed. Everything that our children see as normal is gone. They don't get to see their friends. They don't get to see their teachers. They don't get to see their grandmas and grandpas. My kids haven't seen my grandpa since the beginning of this. And so, there's significant people in their lives that were like, where are they? What's going on? And think about how we're feeling as adults in this whole situation. And multiply that for a child who you can't explain it to. They just don't have a grid. They don't have a peg to hang it on. And so how are we to teach our children how is a teacher to teach our children in a public school arena while our child is under duress? And so we've been throwing around this term, a new normal. We don't need a new normal. What we need is to return to our roots. We need to return to our roots. It's universal knowledge that growth comes from faith. Faith produces character. Character produces knowledge. Knowledge produces self-control. Self-control produces perseverance. Perseverance produces goodness. Goodness produces brotherly kindness. And brotherly kindness produces love. I'm going to break that down for us. That's what we're going to be talking about today, and how this is how we are going to move out of this state of duress and move into a state of hope. So I'm going to break it down. So faith, moral compass, ideals, personal standards, call it whatever you want. But what is your foundational beliefs? Do you know? The majority of the world doesn't. Other people's plans are more apt to be applied to our lives than what we think and what we believe and what we stand for. For an example, people are asking each other about what they're going to do about school this fall. What are you going to do? Well, if they have to go back to school with masks on, what are you going to do? If they have to do online learning, what are you going to do? What are you going to, like, we're always asking other people what they're going to do because we are floating in the sea of unknown, and we are going, I don't know what to do, and I don't know what's right. I don't know what is acceptable. There's so many differencing opinions on even what to wear on our face and what we shouldn't wear on our face. There's so many opinions out there, and there's so much clashing and so much noise that we can't even decipher for ourselves what is right for us, because we, again, are under duress, where if we make a choice and then somebody gets upset with us for making that choice, then we feel obligated to do what they said is right. So even bringing up children rearing books, how many of us have bought a child rearing book read it, tried to apply it. It didn't work for the first couple of days, and giving up and buying another book and trying that one. We're all guilty. Guaranteed, we're all guilty of that. So we just don't know. We feel like we're incapable of figuring things out ourselves, and we want to look to somebody else to give us the answer instead of coming into a point of reflection and finding it out ourselves and finding out what we believe. I mentioned that I do real estate now. And one of the things about real estate is that if a seller or a buyer signs a contract of purchase or sale, they sign it while they're under duress, that contract or sale does not stand. It does not. It is not upheld by, if it were to bring to court, it would not be upheld. It is not a binding contract. And so one thing that I would like to encourage you guys is, number one, figure out what you believe. Figure out what you believe. It is essential to shaping your child into the adults you hope they turn out to be. I'm just going to have to apologize. I hear somebody coming down the stairs. I don't know who they are. I'm at my office, and so we'll just see if somebody pops in here. So I have to apologize. I actually left the home, so this wouldn't happen in my own home with the kids popping in and out. And then I also have to apologize. My trigeminal neuralgia is kind of kicking in at the end of the day, and so if my speech gets a little slurred, or if I get a little tongue-tied, please have grace with me. Morgan, I need to come and see you. So moving on. So number one, figure out what you believe. It is essential to shaping your child into the adults that you hope they become. Number two, moving into number two, growth comes from faith, and faith produces character. Begin purposefully in begin to be purposeful in molding and modeling your character to your children. The things that you believe, the things that you find to be truth, the things that you would say is your moral compass. Begin to model it to your children and start the molding process for your children now. When you teach your children how to handle day-to-day struggles with a lens of your family's beliefs and values and moral compass, you enhance their character. So faith produces character. Character produces knowledge. When you get to the point of teaching your children how to treat the sphere around them with honor and respect, you create an environment for them to obtain knowledge. But you have also cultivated them into having teachable hearts. So, if we skip our step 1 and step 2, if we skip growing in faith and producing character and go straight to number 3, we are doomed as a society. And I know those are very strong words, but we are doomed as a society because we are giving out to our children academics, not an education. For an example, it's the difference between checking the box and being a follower that's the academic side, to education, being a problem solver, thinking for themselves, and becoming a leader. The outcome of jumping over step 1 and 2, growing in faith and building character in our children to become an adult, the children will become an adult who follows the masses and floats through life. They go to their job and they're completely unsatisfied, feeling like they don't have a purpose. And the key word here is purpose. I know many professionals who have these high title jobs. They're doctors, they're lawyers, and they're completely unsatisfied because they were told that this is what's expected of them. They must become these things because that's what, so that society deems has important. And they are important, but not more important than being purposeful in them. And so they don't feel like they have a purpose. They feel like they've been pushed into this thing, told that they have to do it, and they don't really want to do it, and they're not satisfied, and they're not happy. And even though they're making loads of money, money cannot buy happiness. And so we have, a society that is gripped with high numbers of, suicides because they've been forced into doing something that they really don't even want to do. And so it's important that we not only teach our children academically, but we have to start with the character piece, because even going to the point of like, I know this is kind of extreme, but going to the point of like, you give all this academic knowledge to somebody and they don't know how to wield that knowledge correctly, and they don't have character, and they begin to live for themselves and live for their own wants and their own needs, and don't really care about everybody else around them. They leave a destruction in their path. Families are broken, children are left, spouses are divorced. There's just so much out there that happens because of this. They're not taught the character. So, number 4 and 5, I'm going to link them together in our chain. So we have growth comes from faith, faith produces character, character produces knowledge, and knowledge produces self-control and perseverance. I'm going to put those together. 4 and 5 are put together. If we skip 1 and 2, if we skip growth and faith, building of character, and we jump to knowledge, what happens when everything our children have learned doesn't get them everything they want? They're incapable of having self-control about the situation, and they're incapable of persevering through struggles in their lives. When we do academics, we think about what is the purpose when we're thinking academically? Well, the purpose when we're thinking academically, we're thinking about getting the best grades, being the top student in your high school so you can graduate and get the best grades and get into a great college that you were competing all the top students from all over the country. Now you're in competition with them. Then you're competing those students for the best grades in college and to get the highest grades in college, and then you graduate top of your field, and then you're in competition with all of the tops of the fields from all the other college in your field for the best job out there. And you're constantly in competition with other people, and we give up when you don't have perseverance and you don't have self-control and you don't push on. Those people who are just doing it for status, doing it for the money, those people drop out of the race really quickly because they they can't sustain that. Nobody can sustain that. If there's no purpose behind it, nobody can sustain that. So, but those who have character in the long run will always trump those who have academics. Those who have character will always trump those who have academics. What you know will help you get your job. Yes, that's important. But what will help you keep your job is how you apply what you know. Are you working smarter? Are you dedicated? Do you persevere? Do you have self-control? Are you loyal? Do you respect others? Do you have integrity? These are the people who keep their jobs. People who just know stuff, if they don't have the gumption to keep pressing on or problem solving, and those, if they don't have those, it will just be a job to them. They'll check in with their time card and check out, and it doesn't really matter to them. And that's not really an employee anybody wants, really. They want an employee that cares about the company and wants to see the company succeed. So, number 6. So we've had growing in faith. Faith produces character. Character produces knowledge. Knowledge produces self-control. Self-control produces perseverance. Perseverance produces goodness. When we have learned self-control and perseverance, you have experienced just how difficult it is to walk those things out. So when a child learns to use the character that you've instilled in them and educate themselves and persevere through those hard times and have self-control and bite their tongue when others are cutting them down or others are speaking badly about them or somebody they love, and they persevere and they have self-control and they show love instead of revenge, and they know how hard it is to go through those things, how hard it is to have perseverance, how hard it is to go through struggles and trials, that they become filled with goodness and they extend grace and encouragement and sympathy to their fellow human race, which gives us the 7th piece, brotherly love. And we become a society that no longer competes with one another, but becomes a society that supports one another. And we move into a space of, number 8, feeling loved and truly loving those who do these things for us, who extend grace. So, education is not about how we can get through the subject that is set before us. How do we get through this math problem? How do we get through this science formula? How do we get through this, standardized test? How do we get through these things? It isn't about memorizing facts and figures. That's academics. Education can't be under distress. We have to begin to look forward for our children and give them a moral compass and build a foundation of character so that they can wield the knowledge we give them to help society and not just help themselves pass the test. So we need to have a bigger picture. We can't just have our blinders on and looking down and going, okay, we just gotta check this box. We just gotta get this math done today. That's not what it's all about. That's not what education is about. Education is about building the whole person up, building the child into the adult that we hope they become someday. So now all of these things, all of this can be done in any education platform. I started this talk about how this is not about homeschooling. This is about education and the parent's ability to shape our child even in chaos, because we're focusing in on building the character. And once we get and we stop and we take a moment to address the situation before us, then the child becomes teachable. For an example, have you ever been trying to get out the door and your child can't find their shoes? They're throwing a fit, they don't want to go, they can't find their shoes, they don't know how to tie their shoes, they're really frustrated. And we're just going, we gotta go, it's time to go, we're late, we need to get there, people are waiting for us. Has anybody ever been in that situation other than me? Yes, of course we have. And it's a situation where we could get flustered and enter into their anxiety and enter into their duress, or we can take a moment, take a step back, use the character that we've built on our whole life, exhibit self-control and perseverance, and say, hey, let's stop and think about what's happening here. Can we talk about why you're feeling this way? Is it because you don't want to go? Or is it because you feel in a rush? That's a whole nother topic. It's because, and they explain it. You give them options and you talk through it. It's like, okay, now what do we do when we need to communicate how we're feeling? And we work and we talk through and we get to the root of the situation. It's not that they're being rebellious. It's not that they are being obstinate. It's not that they're, don't want to obey you. It's because something else is going on under the surface, and we take that time and we take that moment and we work on the character. And from that character, they're teachable and they learn how to tie their shoes, and we get out the door and we have a victory in our belt, instead of like, oh, fine, I'll just do it for you. And how many times, we have been exhibited that, I don't care if you get an A, I don't care if you just do the work and get it in, hand it in. And it doesn't do anybody any good. And so we need to stop and build the character, and we say, instead of, I know you don't want to do the work, but you still need to do the work. So I want you to apply yourself. I want you to try, do your best. I'm not expecting you to be perfect, but I'm expecting you to try. And then that puts some peace into the situation, instead of just hurry up and get it done, to they can actually think through the process. And it will amaze you at what they come up with. Children are awesome at problem solving if we give them the opportunity. So all these things can be, we can step out of being under duress and move into hope for our kids' education this year, on every platform. We can do it if they're being taught online, if they're going to public school, if they are being homeschooled, if they are in a micro school or a co-op, in a STEM school, a private school, anything, any type of school, we can do this. How can I say that? Because if you apply these things that we talked about today, you stop outsourcing yourself and you become present. I said it. You stop outsourcing yourself. Parents, we have bought into this lie that we are incapable. So much so we no longer have family values. They have been replaced by being politically correct, what our church believes, what party we belong to. We have bought into this lie that we are incapable of making decisions and choices for ourselves. That we are incapable of making decisions and choices and educating our children. And again, when I say education, I'm not talking about academics. I'm talking about character. And so, sorry, my page is stuck together. We bow down to the loudest voice out there that tells us what we must think instead, or stop. Or do we stop and ask ourselves, do we really believe this? Do we really believe what's being handed to me? What's being said out there? So I'm going to leave you with this last question to ponder. I want you to write this down. Am I following my moral compass, or is my moral compass being deflected by fear? Duress is birthed out of fear. If you said fear, if you are living under duress, I want to encourage you to do what I did, what I shared with you at the beginning of this talk. Don't make your decisions from a place of fear. If you're in a place of fear, don't make any decisions. You need to get to a place of peace, and the peace will lead you to what is best for you and your family. And your family is unique. And everybody, there are no families that are like each other. Every family is different, and every family needs something different. And no two families are going to look the same. They might look similar, but they're not going to be exactly the same. And so I'm going to be opening up this conversation to questions and comments now. But before we do, I feel like if you feel like you can't do this alone, if everything that I just presented to you tonight, you're like, I want to do that, but how? How do I do that? And you need somebody to encourage you and go alongside of you in this journey of exploring the options for your unique family. I'm doing 1 hour free consultations. So please reach out. My email is in the description. I do alternative schooling options, alternative education options. And so I have a consulting business that I do, and I work with families one-on-one, and I help them get their why in place. Why are we doing this? And then we talk about who's all involved, and then we get to the what. How are they going to educate their children, and in what platforms and what curriculums, if they choose homeschooling, are they going to do? And so if you feel like you need to have a deeper one-on-one conversation about your unique situation, please email me. It's in the box, and then or in the description box, or you can PM me, send me a private message, and I will connect with you. If you give me your information, I will connect with you in the next 48 hours. So with all that being said, and all of the things that are happening right now and all the uncertainties about, I know that, for example, Minnesota, the governor has given the districts the decision to choose for themselves what their schools are going to be doing. And then also, the private schools, and for example, we have a couple of private schools here that are faith-based, and then we have Shattuck St. Mary's is here, and then we also have a STEM school that is here as well, and they will be making decisions on their own. I don't know any of their answers, so I can't speak to that. I don't know what they're doing. I haven't heard anything personally myself. I don't know if some of you others have. So I can't answer to that, but I can, answer questions. We can talk about anything that I've brought up tonight. And so if you have a question, please post it in the chat box, and I will scroll through and see what is in here. So I haven't been paying attention to the comments so far, because if I look at them, I get totally distracted and forget everything that I was saying. So hi Anam and Cassie and Sarah, Morgan, thanks Jonathan, and Sarah Hacker. Love you, my beautiful friend. You're wonderful. So just a couple of, since there's no questions popping up, I'm just gonna talk about a couple of other things. Actually, I'm gonna, Jonathan, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna bring up a question that you asked me the other day when we were chatting. He asked me, what would I say to somebody who is considering homeschooling, or might be open to it, and the answer to that, I would say, is homeschooling isn't really as scary as people think, and there are certain things that you would need to do in order to do it without being under duress. And some of those things are, so homeschooling, not under duress. And we can talk about public schooling, not under duress. And we can talk about those specific things to each one of those if somebody has a question about those. But homeschooling, not under duress. Number one, homeschooling is you have to de-school. So what that means is we're used to the institutionalized way of educating our children because that's what we know. And so we expect our child, like, oh gosh, I can't educate my child for 8 hours a day because they go to school for 8 hours a day. Well, they're not really being educated that whole time for 8 hours a day. You've got snack, and you've got recess and milk break and gym class and all those, and lunch and all those things. And so public schools were actually, created around parent schedules so that they can, it's, just kind of like a long-term daycare, but they learn stuff during it. So hopefully. And so, so when you do homeschooling, you actually aren't educating your child for 8 hours a day. You typically, the rule is 15 minutes for every year they are. For an example, so if there is a 4-year-old child, I have a 4-year-old, and we do a maximum of 1 hour of educating a day, intentional education a day, because children learn all the time. And that's the second thing. You have to think about homeschooling as being a lifestyle and not compartmentalized to this time of the day. No, children learn all day long. We want to teach our children to become lifelong learners, right? And so we're lifelong learners. We're constantly learning. I can't tell you how many times I've looked on YouTube for a tutorial, and we're just learning. That's what we like to do. We like to read. We like to learn. We like to expand our understanding about things. And so do children. They just don't know how to phrase it in that way. So those are a couple of things that I would say is don't be so anxious about when you're doing it and how long you're doing it. It's all about teaching your children to love to learn learning, to love to learn. So, so that's what I would say to that. Let's talk about online learning. So let's say this is kind of the thought I had. It would be amazing if the teachers who have depleted immune systems, if they could be the teachers that were teaching online, and the children who it would be dangerous for them to go and be around students during this time, if they did their school online, and if, you know, or if there's tutors out there, teachers who maybe lost their jobs during this, they maybe weren't tenure and they lost their jobs because the system couldn't keep them on. You know, they could start tutoring, or they could start it's called micro school. It's a new thing. It's a new old thing, really. It's the like one room schoolhouse that we, you know, read in Little House on the Prairie. Like, that's really what it is. We're I wouldn't say we're digressing, but we're learning that, you know, maybe the education that we see now is maybe not the best way of going about it. Not only that, again, going back to the idea that every family is unique and individual, that not the same thing works for everybody. And so we have kids who might have some special needs, and they need to learn differently than some other kids. We have kids who, you know, if we think about it, every child is different, and we need to celebrate those things instead of marking them and saying, you know, they're not the normal run-of-the-mill student. No, that's not true. Every kid learns differently. Every kid, I can tell you, I have 6 children. Every single one of my children learns differently, and in different seasons of their lives. And, you know, there's audio, there's visual, there's kinesthetic, there's, you know, there's journaling, that there's verbal, where they need to say it and write it and hear it, and they're, you know, they might need to be, you know, bouncing on an exercise ball while they're writing their letters, or jumping from one square to another while saying their letters, or learning how to spell a word, or, you know, every kid learns differently. And not only that, every parent teaches differently. Every teacher teaches differently. And so there's not one right way. There's not one, like, blanket way to teach every child. There are several ways for a child to learn, and we need to embrace where they're at and celebrate where they're at, and you know, invest. You know, some people would say that's catering to them. No, it's not. It's investing in them so that they can be successful, and that they can remember how somebody invested in them when they were younger, so that they became the person that would be generous and help somebody else later on in their life. I remember, this is a little off topic, but not really. I remember this woman. She was the spots and stops counselor in my high school that I went to, and her name is Sarah Dixon. She's amazing, and she literally, like, shaped me as a child. She helped me understand the value of service. And today, as Brett and I were discussing me moving into having a career, I talked to him and I said, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to just do any job. I want to do a job that serves people. And so with the business that I joined, the real estate business that I joined, their focus is on serving the whole client and all of their needs, not just their housing needs. And so that shaped me into who I am today, and wanting to reach out to my community and help my community today. So the things that we do when we invest into our children, when, you know, in their youngest years to their awkward years, that was when she was investing into me. And even to our young adult years, that shapes our children, and our children remember that. Remember, your children's, the voice that they hear inside of their head is your voice. And so what are they hearing? Are they hearing, why can't you listen to what I'm saying? I have to tell you a million times. Or keep trying. Keep trying. And I know it's hard and it's not easy, and I have my days and I have my moments too. Like, trust me, I do. I lose it sometimes, and that's just human nature. And so there's grace for that, and there's mercy for that, and there's a second chance for that, and for us to grow and learn. So, does anybody have a question? Just talking and talking. Well, since no one seems to be having a question, I don't think, I am going to wrap this up. And if you come up with a question later on, or if you're watching this in like replay mode, please PM me so I can get back to you, answer your question for you. I've given a lot of information tonight, probably too much information tonight. So if you feel like a little overwhelmed even from this conversation, like, I know I want that, but I don't know how to get it, and how do I have it in the platform that we choose to do school in this coming year? I am happy to help you no matter what your platform is. Again, this wasn't about homeschooling. It's about celebrating and having hope for this coming school year, no matter what platform you choose to use. And so that's why I'm here. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your night. And I'm going to go home and put my kids to bed and kiss them goodnight. And I hope that I hear from a lot of you soon. And there's a couple of you I will get to see within the next, a couple days and in a few weeks. So looking forward to that. I hope you all have a great night. And that's it for me. Bye.